Thank you so much for staying with us. The matter is before the courts of law. Who collects VAT, value-added tax? So we'll be leaving out the legal firewalls. We'll go beyond that to take a look at the Nigerian Federation and the place of tax revenue. Most revenue accruing to the government come through tax, and in the country, the level of taxes collected quite low compared with other countries across the world and even within Africa. For instance, for year 2020, our tax to GDP ratio was 6.1%, while it was almost 30% for South Africa. Joining me to take a look at this is a professor of economics, Professor Uche Uwaleke, President Capital Markets Academics of Nigeria. He was also Commissioner of Finance in Imo State. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thank you, Amechi. I'm a professor of capital markets.
Professor of capital markets, sorry. Now, you were part of the Federation Accounts Allocation Committee, sharing of Federation accounts, proceeds and accruals on a monthly basis.
Yes.
Now, a lot of people are, states as it were, quite interested in knowing how money accrue to this revenue. There's another court case instituted by the Governors Forum at the Supreme Court challenging why the federal government is not paying in proceeds of
stamp duty.
Not that of the stamp duty. The stamp duty is another. Proceed of recovered stolen funds.
Okay.
They say instead of going into the federation account, the federal government pushes them into the consolidated revenue account, its own account. But they are saying it should go into the federation account, where it will be shared based on existing formula. That of the stamp duty also, they are looking at stamp duty, individual to individual transaction, as they say is for the states and shouldn't be collected by the federal government. So a lot of interest about accruals into the federation account.
Yeah, Amechi, let me even start by way of an opening statement, to say that what is currently going on now, I see as healthy. The debate for me is a healthy one, and I think ultimately the winner will be the nation, will be the union. So at the end of the day, the union will be stronger, however it goes. And that's because...
So it's going to be a win-win situation.
Yes, it's going to be a win-win situation, whether at the end of the day, FIRS, wins, or even the states also win. So for me, it's going to be a win-win situation. And the debate is, coming against the backdrop of the increasing recognition of the fact that, we can't continue to rely on oil revenue. The experience of 2016 and recently the experience of 2020, these experiences, have made it clear that oil revenue is not a sustainable means of revenue, that, the country should look inwards and also explore avenues of shoring up revenue, especially via taxes. So tax, as you know, particularly VAT, is one sustainable means of revenue. And that's why everyone now seems interested. That's why the FG is interested. That's also why the states, are interested.
And part of why I said the federal inland revenue is interested,
that's
because
the FG.
It collects 4%
and keeps 4%
as administrative cost.
Yes. So why I said it's going to be a win-win situation is the fact that at the end of the day, if the pronouncement, because it's one case I see getting to the Supreme Court. So if at the end of the day the pronouncement is that yes, the VAT Act is supreme, that the FIRS has the powers to collect this, okay, then I'm pretty sure the issue of distribution will be addressed, because some have argued that it's not a collection issue, that it's actually a distribution issue. A situation in which you have a horizontal allocation that gives just 20% to the derivation, as it were, or contribution, 50% on the basis of equality of states, and then 30% on the basis of population. So that will
That's for VAT.
For VAT, for VAT.
You can do where you list it again.
Pardon?
List the criteria
for horizontal allocation. First, of course, horizontal allocation formula for the FAC itself, what comes into the pool. You have first the vertical, okay? The vertical, under the vertical, 48.5% goes to the federal government under the vertical allocation.
That's for the entire
FAC.
federation accounts allocation.
Yes.
Okay.
But of course, people say that what actually goes to the FG is 52.68%. And that's because the federal government is in custody of the special funds. Out of the special funds, you have FCT, 1%. You have ecological, 1%. You have stabilization, 0.5%. And you have natural resources development, okay, which is, 1 point, slightly above 1%.
I think there's a healthcare development fund also.
No, that one is also under the horizontal allocation.
Okay.
So what I've just given you is the vertical allocation, where you have FG 52.68%, states get 26.7%, and the local governments, get 20.6%. So that's the vertical. Now, the horizontal allocation is what now happens with the 26.7 that is meant for states. Okay, horizontal allocation. Under the horizontal allocation, we have what we call indices or criteria for the allocation of the revenue. Now, under that indices, equality of states, okay, attract 40%. Equality of states. Population, 30%. Okay. Then you have the land mass or terrain, 10%. You have the IGR effort, 10%. Okay. And then the one you mentioned, you have the social development factors, 10%. That makes 100%. Now, out of the social development factors, you have education, health, and water. Okay? So that's the horizontal allocation. And of course, you also know that there has been this clamor to even alter the vertical allocation in favor of states, because right now states just get 26.7. The FG gets 48.5, and is also controlling the special funds. Okay, now back to the issue of VAT.
What's the VAT component, the distribution of VAT component of the federation account?
Okay,
what's the formula?
okay. Now for the VAT, okay, of course the states and local government get the bulk. You mentioned it. The FIRS keeps 4%, cost of collection. And then out of the balance, the FG gets 15%. States take 50%. And local governments, 35%. So that is the distribution for VAT. Okay? So
now the distribution for the states and local government, is it of similar sharing formula that is used for the entire accruals into the federation account, or are there specific?
No, I earlier mentioned for VAT, the horizontal allocation.
Okay, that's for the VAT.
I also talked about 20% contribution. That's why Lagos State is saying it contributes more. Why is it getting less? Lagos and Rivers, that's the argument. Okay, and population is 30, equality of states 50. So the weight of contribution or derivation is very low.
It's not reflected, and
yes.
That's why you raised the issue that is a distribution issue.
Yes. Some argue,
not a collection issue.
Some argue that it's actually a distribution issue. That if at the end of the day it's done in such a way that derivation, okay, remember that's even the principle behind the 13% derivation. That derivation, carries a substantial weight. Okay, over and above, say, equality of states, over and above, say, population. Because it's because of population, for example, that you find states like Kano, getting something substantial, okay, regardless of what is being contributed. So these are the issues. And as I mentioned earlier, however it goes, okay, I think at the end of the day, the union will be, stronger and will be better.
Some people have raised the issue, flowing from what you have said, is it should be a distribution thing that states collection may pose problems. It may throw up issues of multiple collection, multiple taxation, and there will be some confusion that there are some countries that collect federally,
yes,
and of course, we can now begin to deal with the issue of distribution.
Yes, I quite agree with that. But just before then, let's even look at the why all these things have come up. By way of background, recall that VAT was introduced in 1993, VAT decree 1993, implementation 94, and both the 1979 Constitution and the 1999 Constitution did not specifically mention who should collect VAT. Okay, in the 1999 Constitution, for example, sections 163, okay, items 58 and 59 that talks about exclusive list. Okay, is only talking about taxes with respect to income, profits, capital gains, and stamp duty. Where it says the National Assembly has the powers to make laws in relation to
there
those.
Are no mention of consumption tax,
yes,
education tax.
Yes.
There are so many of them that they were not.
Yeah.
No
So I
mention
think this is what is generating the controversy and has been subject to various interpretations. You trust our courts and law they say can be bent. Either
without
way.
being broken.
Yeah. So we have had over time we've had series of court judgments, conflicting court judgments, beginning with that of, I recall there was a case of the Attorney General of Lagos State and the Eco Hotels. Eco Hotels at some point had gone to court, questioning why it should pay consumption tax, to Lagos when it's also paying the VAT. So to Eco Hotel then it was tantamount to double taxation. Okay, the court then held that the National Assembly had powers, the court then held that consumption tax was the same as the VAT, okay, and therefore the VAT Act, okay, if you like, overshadowed the consumption tax. So the judgment was in favor of the Eco Hotels. Now, in recent times, we've seen again judgments that have appear in conflict.
I think there was another judgment.
There was one in December.
From Lagos.
In December,
yes.
Okala, Emma Okala, okay? In December last year, Emma Okala and FIRS. Okay, again, what was the issue? The court then held that the National Assembly's powers to make taxes, those powers do not extend to VAT. That they were only restricted to income, profits, capital gains, and stamp duties.
I think there was another court case in Lagos, consolidated trustees of the Hotel Association and the state.
Yeah, several cases.
Yes, where the judgment said it is consumption tax is the state tax.
Yes, and the most recent judicial development, of course, the
River State High Court.
Yeah, the River State, yes, Federal High Court had ruled that the states, could collect that. So the point I'm making is we've had this conflicting judgments, and of course, it's on appeal, and even the Court of Appeal has said status quo should remain, and even that pronouncement has also been interpreted, in different ways. So it will ultimately get to the Supreme Court. So it is that lacuna in the Constitution that has generated this controversy. So it's neither in the exclusive list nor in the concurrent list. No, so people now interpret it to mean it's
But like you said, what is providing the fertile ground for this agitation is issue of distribution.
Yes.
Issue of what is due to. What is equity in terms of distribution? You were at that Federation Accounts Allocation Committee for some time. What was it like? What was the feeling as they usually congregate in Abuja? Agitation has been there. What is it like dealing with these matters inside there?
Yeah, the feeling has been that of, the government takes the lion's share, and somehow the share of the states and local governments, should be, increased. Okay, that has been the feeling, and that's why to the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation, and Fiscal Commission is also thinking, to the best of my knowledge, at some point, thinking with the idea also of amending adjusting the
revenue sharing
formula. But of course, as you rightly mentioned, we have had arguments on both sides. Both sides, in my view, have merits. Both sides. So at the end of the day, it's what we have on balance. Take the case of centralized collection, for example, that FIRS should collect the VAT. Of course, it simplifies the process of tax collection. It reduces the risk of double taxation, for example. Okay, and to some extent too, it might also reduce the cost of even the compliance. So when it is centrally collected, it has its own its own merits. And again, people have said FIRS has developed the capacity to collect this tax over time, that some states, may not have the capacity, the technical capacity, to collect VAT, okay? So that is the argument in favor of still having centralized
There's a counter-argument to that. Some people point at the about 100 billion that FIRS collects and say that that's why they are insisting that it's too good to lose, that they are more fixed on that, and that if you really allow states, they will show more aggression in collection, that is always difficult administering every part of the country from a unit in Abuja, that if some states have the capacity, so be it. If some others don't have, then they can allow the federal inland revenue to continue with the collection.
Yes, I was going to provide the two sides. I've just told you about the arguments in favor of centralized collection,
Yes.
and that's also why you find some countries doing so, especially countries that are not federation. Ghana, for example, Ghana is described as a unitary constitutional democracy, Ghana. And Ghana, VAT, which is 12.5% in Ghana, it used to be 15%, but recently dropped to 12.5%. It's collected by the Ghana Revenue Authority, okay? But on the other side, on the flip side, you also have the, those who say that this thing is better decentralized, okay? A major argument in support of that, which I find persuasive, quite persuasive, is that it is very much in sync with, fiscal federalism. So if you are running a federation, you have many states, many tiers of government, and you are you're really interested in a harmonious relationship between or among the tiers of government, in the assignment of responsibilities and the taxing powers, okay, then decentralized collection of VAT, is the way to go. Okay, so these people also argue that when you centralize and then you distribute, okay, particularly not on the basis of derivation, that you create a sense of entitlement. So you find some states, for example, or some subnationals having this sense of entitlement, and of course, that can create complacency. Okay, they become lazy. So they wouldn't, because they know that after all, someone else is doing it, head or tail, we are getting something. So it creates a sense of entitlement, complacency, so they become lazy. Now, the other thing too is that the argument in favor of decentralized, that it could possibly even lead to an increase in tax productivity, okay, in terms of revenue that comes to not only the subnationals, but even what you have in general, because you just mentioned what is tax to GDP ratio in Nigeria? Less than 10%. Some say 6%, between 6 and 8%. That's quite low. So if we decentralized VAT collection, that it is possible, okay, that a number of states, could deploy measures to collect more VAT than they are currently doing now. So these are the arguments in favor of decentralization. And you also find that if you look at country experiences, the best way to compare is to compare oranges with oranges. Is that not so? Or apples with apples. So if we want to compare, we don't compare ourselves with countries that are not federation. So we compare ourselves with those running federation. USA, India, Pakistan, Argentina, Brazil, okay, Russia. So
there are not too many federations.
There are not too many. Exactly.
Sudan is a federation.
Yes.
I guess Sudan, yes.
Okay.
Perhaps we don't have facts about Sudan.
No, yes. A federation is nothing but,
No, about the tax administration system in Sudan.
In Sudan. Okay, but at least the very obvious ones. Look at USA, for example, the model. USA, there is no VAT in USA. Okay, to the best of my knowledge. Okay, various states collect consumption taxes, sales taxes at different rates. So there is no federal VAT in the USA. Okay, you look at India, for example. India has 28 states and 8 union territories. Now, these states administer various, VAT is also called goods and services tax. That's another name for VAT in many of these countries. So various states, okay, administer goods and services tax. And it's not all the states in India too that's, keyed in. So it's also possible that by the time we decentralize it in Nigeria, you may find 1 or 2 states, not doing that, for maybe to attract more investment and so on. So the point I'm making that you have states or countries that, again, have also decentralized. India is one of them. Brazil is also another, even though in recent times Brazil is thinking of consolidating into having what they call a Brazilian tax. In Pakistan, all the 4 provinces collect different taxes. In Pakistan, goods and services tax or VAT is 17%, and the provinces charge between 13 to 16%. So they vary. Okay. In India, I mentioned India. You have 28% VAT. You have 18% VAT. You have 12% VAT. So they have various categories of VAT. All right. Now, the country that does centralized collection among the federation is Australia. In Australia, VAT is regarded as a Commonwealth tax. Commonwealth means a federation tax. And why is this so? It is so because of their definition of excise tax or excise duties. In Nigeria, excise duties are duties on locally produced goods. Is that not so? But in Australia, it is a more comprehensive term. It is a tax also on sale of goods, production, sale, and distribution of goods. So because of that, the Constitution of Australia vets the collection of tax on the Commonwealth, on the Federation. So it makes sense, it stands to reason, therefore, that when those taxes are collected, what happens? The Commonwealth distributes them, to the 6, Australia has 6 states and 2 Commonwealth territories, does the distribution. So the point I'm making is that, yes, in some countries you have decentralized, in other countries you have centralized. What works for one country may not necessarily work for the other, okay? But you can't say that centralized is a rule, because I've had people say that there's nowhere that, this collection is decentralized, but it's not true. If you research very well, you find that there are countries that are
collect centrally.
Decentralized, meaning allowing subnationals to also collect these taxes. And look at Lagos State, for example. The Lagos State tax VAT law is 6%, saying 6%. So you may also find that some states may also...
River State that passed recently, who knows what was the percent, whether they mentioned the rate.
Yes, but in all this, usually the federal VAT rate will serve as the benchmark, because you wouldn't want to exceed. Yeah, so
just like
states,
minimum wage.
Yeah, so some other states, may also enact, VAT that are below the federal VAT. But Amechi, at the end of the day, even if we adopt the decentralized, allow states to collect, for example, okay, you may realize that even the federal government will have more money because of what is collected at present. Import VAT, constitutes quite...
and it belongs to the federal government.
Yes. No, for now, it enters the pool and it's shared.
No, I mean, if the states are allowed to collect,
yes,
federal government will become the highest collector.
Yes, federal government
because of these export-import issues.
Exactly. So as I said, it's a win-win thing. And I think maybe it's something we should... give it a trial in Nigeria. This idea of...
and it appears the federal government has not directly made a comment, because it's the federal revenue that is pushing. I've not heard the Attorney General, perhaps, they're in communication with the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice. Who knows? But from what you have said, perhaps it may not necessarily be what a legal solution could result, but at some point there has to be that political resolution that will come in to complement whatever decision is reached at the court.
I think if it gets to the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court makes a pronouncement, that should be final. If the Supreme Court concurs with what we have so far from the Federal High Court, that means Lagos States, River States, and any other states can go ahead. And recently I read that even the southwest states are, trying to come up with a position, and that's what you're also...
Common position.
Yes, common position. That's also you're also likely to get. In Canada, for example, you find some, regions. Some regions can decide to come together, okay, and harmonize their own VAT. So the southwest states, for example, can come together and say, okay, let's harmonize. Let's all adopt 6%. So, and that's the beauty of, this federal structure. You know, and as I said, by the time you have that, you may also have some, you know, states that would say, okay, we are not, you know, doing VAT. Okay, it's also possible, just as we have in India.
Thank you so much for staying with us. We are taking a look at the Nigerian Federation, especially with the struggle or contestations over tax revenue. Who collects? But like my guest has noted, Professor Uche Waleke, Professor of Capital Market and President Capital Markets Academy of Nigeria, perhaps the underlying problem is distribution. And distribution has always been contentious in Nigeria, right from independence till the Ibrahim Babangida military administration came out with not less than 13% principle. But of course, that battle has also gone into proceeds from value-added tax that goes into the Federation account. Professor Waleke, thank you so much for staying with us.
Yeah, thanks, Amit.
So we have two issues we are dealing with inside Federation account, allocation committee. The first contest is give more to the states, win the exclusive list of a lot of responsibilities because of inefficiency, and push them to the residual, and by implication, apportion a greater percentage of our revenue to the states. That's on one part. On the other part, the states are yet to agree on distribution. Those generating believe they need their interests not well represented.
No, I think the other leg of it is to let it be a concurrent thing. Yes, so let's both the federal and the state governments, you know, have powers to impose you know, VAT, let it be a concurrent. And in advancing this argument, I have at the back of my mind the current practice with personal income tax. Personal income tax is largely collected, of course, you know, by the states. The principal place of residence rule. That's why you find the governor of Bayelsa, you know, saying,
and some other South states.
Yeah, saying all the headquarters of oil companies should come to Bayelsa, and that's because you know, the tax, the payee, personal income tax, you know, is paid to Lagos. The staff, because they reside in Lagos, principal place of residence. So the states collect personal income tax under the Personal Income Tax Act. Okay, the federal government also collects personal income tax of the armed forces, the police, the, you know,
and the federal
external affairs, foreign, yes. So FG collects personal income tax, states collect personal income tax. Capital gains tax of 10%. FG collects capital gains tax. States also collect capital gains tax, you know, in relation to individuals and persons. Ditto for stamp duties. Okay, FG collects stamp duties, you know, duties on instruments, and states also collect, you know, with respect to individuals, and that's why the recent move by states, the states went to court, you know, to say that they need the money collected, you know, with respect to person.
Which one do states collect? Because I know federal government collects as to financial transactions.
Yes, and as well as any instrument that has to do with corporate.
Okay.
Yes, but if it is person to person or individual, capital gain stamp duty, states also.
So that's what the states are claiming.
Yes,
now,
that's what
they instituted.
Exactly. So if you can have this delineation, this clear line, okay, it's also possible that in the case of VAT, you can also have a clear line, okay? Because some people have said, you know, if goods are produced here and are consumed in another, produced in location A, consumed in location B, okay? And the companies are in location A, and they are the ones remitting the tax, you know, as we've had. You know, I'm sure you've heard of what this thing they call the headquarters effect. Okay, in the case of that, Lagos is claiming that is the one collecting all the. That collection is not the same thing as generation. I've had that argument. That Lagos State is collecting all the tax doesn't mean that collection is done from Lagos. Much of it doesn't mean that it's generated in Lagos. And that's because consumers
there were instances people have given.
Yes, consumers
but for the case,
all over.
Yes.
You know, like the case of, they usually cite telecom companies, for example, with headquarters in Lagos. But when you buy data or you buy your recharge card, the VAT, those ones remit.
Are recorded for Lagos.
Okay, you know, this argument has been there. So the headquarter effect is there. But the point I'm making is that once you have interstate transactions like that, it falls within the purview of the federal government. But if it is intrastate, okay, states should be allowed to collect VAT based on intrastate transactions. Okay, I think this matter too even came up as far back as 1985 in a case of the Attorney General of Ogun State versus Adebowa. You can check it out, where the court held, that in relation to consumption tax, that states had power to collect consumption tax intra, but once it is inter, it goes to federal.
Now, it's a consumption tax, so it should be collected at the point of consumption.
Yes, you see, but the way it is, like Malaysia is a typical case. In Malaysia, if you look at the VAT administration in Malaysia, it's clearly a destination-based tax. Destination-based, collected in the location of the consumer.
Consumptions, yes. Now, the problem here is that perhaps the way we collect, because of the lack of a framework, efficient framework, the penetration of non-cash transactions is still low, because if we are able to achieve like in advanced countries, it will be easier to collect at destination level, at consumption level.
Yes.
But because it's always difficult, the level of penetration in Nigeria is still low, then it poses some problems.
Yes, and that's why here the arrangement is for businesses that generate VATable transactions, to register for VAT, file their
monthly
returns, and then make the payment. So of course there are transactions that it's easy to determine the location. For example, you walk into a restaurant to eat, and you are given a bill. It shows you the VAT. So that restaurant is expected to register for VAT and file, and then so that is very easy. So it is intra. So in the case of intra, I'm saying that it's easy for states to come in, but when it is inter,
across states,
okay, the federal government should take charge, and that's why I don't think it will amount to any double taxation if there is this clear delineation. Yes,
but it's the same principle that applies with road system in Nigeria. What determines a federal road is if it is interstate.
Exactly.
But if it's intra, it's a state road. So we should take that too.
And that's why I said earlier that at the end of the day, the federal government may even be the winner, the biggest winner, because it will get the bulk of it. And what happens to states
it depends on the accruers to the federal government. Should we go to the consolidated revenue account or to the federation account?
No, if we have 3 tiers and the federal government is collecting, states are collecting, okay, it means that what the federal government gets goes into the federal government account, which is the CRF.
Federal government collects interstate, collects
imports. That's the
point
I'm making. It becomes that of the federal government. Okay, but the federal government can now, just as we have in Australia. In Australia, we have the Commonwealth Grant Commission. The federal government can now, use part of that money to assist the states where VAT collection is low. Okay, because if you allow a lot of states in the southwest, for example, and in the south, to collect VAT, and it's adding to their IGR, okay, and you find a few states, maybe in the north, because if you look at that statistics released by the one I saw recently by StatiSense, where a state like Jigawa, for example, is depends on FAC by over 90%. So if you take a Jigawa, for example, on the basis of that information, federal government can decide to also, support, Jigawa based on the import, based on the ones they're also collecting. All right. So I don't see that one now entering the distribution pool, okay, to be shared again when you have given powers to...
But, in Nigeria, issue of equity, issue of distribution of everything is always contentious.
Yes.
And if it's a political decision, as it were,
yes.
To the discretion of the federal government, then the whole issue of inequity, marginalization, nepotism will always
yes, I think decentralizing is even in sync with the equity principle. The principle of taxation equity, if it has to be equitable, okay, the subnational should have powers to, collect, if it has to be equitable. But I'm sure the government, of course, when I say the government, I mean particularly the FG, is interested in even development. And that's why the idea of collecting at the center and distributing
came up in the first place.
Exactly. So to meet that need or that requirement for even development, there can be a kind of support for states that
yes, I agree with you, but the problem is what percentage goes to that. That's why those that are producing will begin to agitate. But in all this, what we can glean from it is that apart from the court case over VAT, that of stamp duty, and we may expect more. It tells us that the tax administration system in the Federal Republic of Nigeria is still hazy. Perhaps the country has not understood it as it were. There are so many areas that are still gray that needs either political or legal clarification.
Yes, but it's not just peculiar to Nigeria. This is what you find in virtually every country in the world. You have 193 member UN nations, out of which over 166, have adopted VAT, and you find many of these countries, implementing reforms at one point or the other. So as we speak, Brazil is implementing, tax reforms that substantially will look at the VAT or the goods services tax. So reforms, of course, one should expect them to be a continuous thing. In Ghana, for example, when the VAT was introduced in Ghana in 1994, I think the first time 1994, what happened? It was, it received a lot of opposition, so it didn't really take off. Okay, so it died, and much later it was, resuscitated. So the point I'm making is that even for our tax system, we'll continue to see, evolution. We'll continue to see reforms, and that's why even the National Tax Policy 2017, National Tax Policy, try to accommodate a lot of changes and reforms, and that is also what the country is implementing now. So along the way, we'll continue to see developments, and then we'll respond to them as they arise, which is why I'm of the opinion that with what is happening now, okay, we can, the country can, give voice to, or lend credence to this clamor for decentralization, okay, and we'll see how it goes. If at some point so we feel it's not working, we can change. We can always change. But as I said, it's in the spirit of true federalism. Now, whether we're talking about federalism, true federalism, this is one opportunity, to bring it about. And
perhaps the third tier of our government, the local councils, we are not seeing much agitations from them. Because by law,
yes,
states are supposed to establish a revenue sharing formula between the government and the local governments based on revenue collected and the inflow. But we rarely see this. So at the level of federal and states, we see a lot of agitations. But between the states and local government, perhaps because the governors have appeared to have pocketed this local government, we are not seeing agitations, we are not seeing push for reforms, we are not seeing some drive to ensure that the laws are implemented as it were, especially for taxation and revenue sharing.
Yeah, so you see the issue of double taxation can really rear its head at the subnational level where you have states and local governments. If you have a situation in which the state is collecting particular tax and local governments are also collecting something similar, of course, that will amount to double taxation. And that's why if we get the states, for example, to collect this VAT, there will be maybe a department of VAT within the Internal Revenue Service that will be handling that. And by the way, talking about even this collection, you find in some countries, the VAT is collected by the Customs Department. Okay, here it is by the FIRS, you know, largely. Of course, customs also
and remit to FIRS.
Also collect, yes, but in some countries it's by the customs, you know, department. In some other countries too, okay, there is a separate VAT service. So it's not the domestic, you know, tax office that does that. There's a separate VAT service that does that. So if we want to have a separate VAT service in Nigeria, for example, it will be distinct from the Federal Inland Revenue Service. But that also has its own demerits, drawbacks, you know, coordination issues, you know, and all that. So at the subnational level, at the state level, okay, these things are, you know, can be easily harmonized, you know, by the Internal Revenue Service, particularly where the IRS is independent, you know, has a great deal of administrative and financial, you know, autonomy. The IRS.
That's for the states?
For the states, yes. Part of the problems, states, in my view, states, IRS, you know, part of
That's
the problems
Internal Revenue Service.
Yes, is this issue of, you know, they are usually affected by political instability, discontinuity. So usually when you find a new governor comes, he removes the chairman of the, you know, the Board of Internal Revenue and brings in a new person. So this political interference, you know, usually affects the functioning of IRS, okay, apart from issues of...
they rarely serve out their tenure.
Yes, they rarely serve out their tenure. So, and of course, it affects revenue, you know, mobilization and revenue generation. So I think it's something that can be resolved at the state level. States have the taxes that they collect. Local governments also have, you know, a liquor license and the rest, what they also collect, all right? So I don't see, you know, local governments also agitating or, you know, imposing consumption tax when you have, when it's done at the state level.
Okay, but one lesson for the states, some few states have shown interest, Lagos and Rivers and Lagos, enacting laws, others may follow suit. Yes. Others have said, at the moment, they may not have the capacity to collect, but there's this lesson that you need to develop your capacity to collect.
Yes.
The federal government may not always be there. There are some other taxes, especially as states are not doing very well with internal revenue.
Yes. What lessons for states? I think it can capture it in this saying, popular saying, necessity is the mother of invention. Okay? Look at the case of Lagos State, when the funds allocation to Lagos was withheld. Okay, what happened? The story of Lagos State IGR today, you can't finish telling it without mentioning the fact that that action, you know, triggered the all the ideas that Lagos State came up with.
And to refreshing the minds of viewers, it was at the tail end of the Obasanjo administration when Lagos State government established some development areas and the federal government felt, the Obasanjo administration felt they lacked the powers and it stopped allocation to local councils.
Based on
Lagos State was still getting.
Based on constitution.
Yes, what is meant for it as the state.
Yes.
But for the local governments, it was withheld. Perhaps it forced the state necessity is a mother of invention, and they relied heavily on internal revenue to sustain a government.
Beautiful, and that's also what I see happening if this issue of VAT if it's settled on the, you know, in favor of states collecting, because you will now find states like Kano, for example. Kano has the popular. What is VAT? VAT is consumption tax. It's a tax on, you know, which you charge, you know, at the various stages of production and
goods
distribution,
and services.
Yes, of goods and services. So Kano State has the potential to even generate much more than it's currently receiving.
2.80 generated in June, according to Governor Wike.
No. Okay,
June 2021.
Yes, I'm saying
2.8 billion.
Yes, I'm saying Kano State can, if you allow states to collect, Kano State can generate far more than that, and that's because, of course, you know, if you look at the federal VAT has a lot of waivers, has a lot of exemptions, you know, zero-rated, you know, goods and services.
Aircraft, pharmaceuticals.
Yes, okay. Recently, the airline tickets, you know, got exemption. So what I'm saying for Kano now, okay, Kano will now come back, okay, and look at those goods and maybe remove some of the waivers, you know, to be able to boost revenue. So Kaduna too is another potential, another state that can raise massive revenue from VAT. Already Kaduna is doing very well in terms of IGR. I think it's one of the top states we have in Nigeria. And if they also get the power to, do VAT, I'm pretty sure the IGR, will rise astronomically.
Okay, I think we have just got into the end of our journey. The legal fireworks continues at the Supreme Court, Appeal Court, and ultimately we end up at the Supreme Court. But what we have done is just to break them down for you. Tax administration in Nigeria, especially within a country that operates a federal system of government, 3 tiers of government, an issue of revenue sharing is not just paramount, but has been quite contentious. We have to thank you to you, Uche Uwaleke, Professor of Capital Market, President Capital Market Academics of Nigeria, and a lecturer at Nasarawa State University, Kefi, Nasarawa State. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Doctor.